The storm and the strangers. The wind howled like a wounded beast across the Appalachian foothills, dragging walls of snow down from the mountains. It was one of those nights when even the coyotes went silent, a night that dared anyone to step outside. But in a little wooden house tucked off Route 29, a single light still burned. Evelyn May Carter, 71 years old, proud, sharp as a tack, and tougher than any man she'd ever met, stood at her kitchen window, watching the storm beat against her porch. Her house was old but clean, smelling of cedar and cinnamon. On the wall hung faded photos. Her late husband in uniform, her son in a graduation gown, her church choir smiling in robes of blue. She sipped her tea slowly, wrapping her shawl tighter around her shoulders. The radio murmured warnings, blizzard conditions expected through the night. "Stay indoors! Roads are closed!" Evelyn shook her head. "Lord, keep the fools home tonight," but as if heaven itself wanted to prove her wrong. The silence outside cracked amid a deep, guttural roar of engines echoing down the hill. Motorcycles, several of them. She frowned, setting her cup down. Now what on earth? Through the swirling snow, she saw headlights. 9 of them, cutting through the storm like torches in a sea of white. The bikes crawled along the road, struggling, tires slipping on the ice. The riders were wrapped in leather and denim, the outlines of skulls and wings barely visible beneath the snow that clung to their jackets. The roar faded, replaced by shouting. Then, one bike skidded sideways, slamming into a ditch. Evelyn gasped. "Oh, Lord." For a moment she hesitated. She was alone. An old woman in the middle of nowhere in the dead of winter. And outside 9 strangers, men who looked like they'd stepped out of a headline. She'd seen the patches before, Hell's Angels, the kind of men her pastor warned her about. She could have locked her door, turned off the light, and pretended she hadn't seen a thing. But that wasn't who Evelyn May Carter was. She grabbed her coat, slipped her boots on, and opened the door. The wind slammed into her like a freight train, but she kept walking, her flashlight slicing through the blizzard. "Hey!" she called, her voice nearly swallowed by the storm. "Y'all need help?" At first, only the storm answered. Then a man's voice, rough, deep, shouted back. "One of our guys hit the ditch. His bike's busted. He's bleeding." Evelyn trudged forward until she saw them clearly. 9 hulking figures, their faces half hidden by helmets and scarves, crouched around a fallen bike. One of them, a man with tattoos down his neck, was holding another's arm. Trying to stop the bleeding, Evelyn's flashlight found the injured man's face. Young, barely 30, pale from the cold, blood dripping from a cut on his forehead. His motorcycle lay twisted in the snow. "Bring him inside," she said firmly. One of the bikers turned toward her, his expression caught between disbelief and suspicion. "Lady, we don't want to cause trouble." "You already did," she said, planting her boots in the snow. "Now help me get him in before he freezes." The leader, tall with steel-gray eyes and a beard like iron wire, studied her. Then he nodded once. "You heard the woman? Move!" Together they lifted the injured man and followed her up the path. The porch creaked under their weight. As soon as they stepped inside, the warmth hit them, and the smell of cinnamon and wood soothed their nerves. Evelyn closed the door behind them. Boots off at the mat. "Don't need y'all tracking snow all over my floors." 8 hardened bikers blinked at her like schoolboys caught misbehaving. Then, almost sheepishly, they obeyed. The gray-eyed leader watched her. "You sure about this, ma'am?" "We ain't exactly neighbors," she interrupted. "No, you're strangers in a storm. But my mama taught me. You don't let people freeze no matter who they are." He nodded slowly, respect flickering in his eyes. "Name's Cole." "Evelyn," she said. "Now, Mr. Cole, your friend needs pressure on that cut." "Towels are under the sink," Cole motioned to one of his men. "Rex, grab 'em!" They worked quietly as Evelyn brewed hot water on the stove. She poured tea, added honey, and handed mugs around. "Drink up. Warm your insides before they freeze." The youngest biker, tall, blonde, jittery, took the cup with shaking hands. "This is real good, ma'am. Course it is." "Made it myself," the others chuckled softly. Tension began to melt with the snow dripping from their jackets. As she cleaned the wounded man's cut, Evelyn asked, What's a bunch of bikers doing out in this weather? Cole sighed. We were on our way to a funeral in Kentucky. One of our brothers went down last week. Didn't think the storm had hit this hard. Evelyn looked up, sympathy in her eyes. I'm sorry for your loss. He nodded, surprised at the sincerity. Thanks. Hours passed. The storm grew worse, hammering the roof. When the power flickered out, Evelyn lit candles. The golden glow turned her little home into something sacred, a sanctuary of warmth and light in a world of ice. The men relaxed gradually. They talked, laughed softly, told stories about the road. Evelyn listened, not judging, just listening, and they found themselves saying more than they expected. Rex told her about his daughter he hadn't seen in 3 years. The blonde kid, nicknamed Cricket, admitted he couldn't read too well. Evelyn just nodded. Ain't too late to learn. Even Cole, stoic, quiet Cole, smiled when she teased him for scowling too much. You keep frowning like that, your face'll freeze that way, she said. He almost laughed. Guess that's better than frostbite. As midnight neared, Evelyn gave them blankets and let them sleep in the living room. She stayed up, rocking slowly in her chair, watching the fire burn low. Then around 2 a.m., a knock came at the door. It was hard, angry, not the kind of knock that asked permission, the kind that demanded it. Evelyn froze, eyes narrowing. The biker stirred, half asleep, but instinct kicked in fast. Cole was on his feet in seconds, reaching for his jacket. Stay back, ma'am. The knock came again, louder this time. Cole moved to the window and peered out. His jaw tightened. Cops, Evelyn frowned. At this hour? Cole didn't answer. He turned to his men. Stay cool. Don't say a damn thing. The door rattled again. Open up, Sheriff's Department! Evelyn walked to the door, calm as ever. I got it. Cole stepped forward. Evelyn, I said I got it. She opened the door. 2 deputies stood there, snow-caked on their boots, flashlights cutting through the dark. Their expressions changed the moment they saw her. And then over her shoulder, the row of rough men in leather jackets inside her house. Evening, ma'am, the taller deputy said slowly. We had reports of bikers stranded out this way. Everything all right? Evelyn smiled politely. Just fine, officer. They hit a ditch in the storm. I gave them shelter till morning. The deputy's eyes narrowed. You know who they are? I know they're human beings and it's cold outside. The shorter deputy snorted. Ma'am, these ain't your average travelers. You shouldn't be. Cole stepped forward, voice steady. We're not causing trouble. We just needed a place to wait out the storm. The deputy's hand dropped to his holster. You watch your tone, son. Evelyn's voice cut through the tension like a blade. You'll watch yours. Both deputies turned to her in surprise. She stood tall, shawl around her shoulders, firelight behind her, the image of calm authority. You come into my home, she said. You do it with respect. These men haven't hurt anyone. They're cold, tired, and grieving. You got a problem with that? The taller deputy hesitated, then muttered, Just making sure you're safe, ma'am. I appreciate that, she said evenly. Now, unless you're here to bring wood for the fire, you can head on back before you freeze. The deputies exchanged looks. Then, grudgingly, they stepped back. We'll be checking in later. You do that, she said, and closed the door firmly behind them. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Cricket whispered, Lady, you just talked down the sheriff. Evelyn poured herself another cup of tea. Men like that only know power when someone lets them have it. I don't. Cole looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his eyes. Respect, gratitude, a kind of reverence he hadn't felt in years. You got guts. Ma'am, he said softly. Evelyn smiled. Takes one to know one. Outside, the wind screamed. But inside, 9 outlaws and 1 elderly woman sat by the fire, bound together by something no storm could touch. And none of them, not even Evelyn May Carter, could have guessed that this night was just the beginning. That soon she'd need them more than she ever imagined. When the town turned against her by morning, the storm had buried the town of Maple Hollow under 2 feet of snow. The mountains gleamed white and cruel beneath the weak light of dawn, and the road outside Evelyn May Carter's home looked like a frozen river, empty and silent. Inside, the house was alive with warmth and laughter. Low, cautious laughter, the kind that comes after danger passes. The bikers had helped shovel her porch, split firewood, and fix the fence that had cracked under the wind. Evelyn stood at her stove, flipping corn cakes in a cast-iron skillet. The smell filled the air, sweet butter, bacon, and black coffee. Cricket, the youngest biker, watched her work with the wide-eyed awe of a boy who hadn't had a home-cooked meal in too long. "Miss Evelyn," he said, "I swear you could feed an army." She grinned. "I already am, baby. Just one with too many tattoos." Rex chuckled from the corner. "Ain't that the truth?" Cole leaned against the wall, arms crossed, observing quietly. He'd seen plenty in his life. Kindness always came with strings. But this old woman, she had no fear, no angle. She just helped. When breakfast was done, she made them eat seconds, then thirds. "Can't fight the cold on an empty stomach," she insisted. By noon, the storm began to ease. The men went out to check their bikes. Evelyn wrapped sandwiches in wax paper and handed them out like a mother sending her boys to school. "Y'all be careful," she said. "That mountain's got a mean streak." Cole nodded. "We'll make it, ma'am." "Thank you for everything." He extended his hand, rough, scarred, trembling slightly. Evelyn took it without hesitation. "You're welcome, son." He looked surprised at that word. Son. It had been a long time since anyone called him that. They revved their bikes, engines growling like thunder rolling away into the distance. Evelyn stood on her porch, shawl fluttering in the cold wind, watching them disappear into the horizon. She smiled softly, unaware that the act of simple kindness she'd done that night would soon set the whole town on fire. Whispers and looks. 2 days later, Evelyn drove her old Buick into town for groceries. As she walked through Miller's Market, she could feel it, eyes on her. The clerk at the counter stopped talking when she entered. Mrs. Haney from church gave a tight smile and turned away. At first, Evelyn thought nothing of it. Maple Hollow had always been a small town. Folks loved their gossip more than Sunday hymns. But when she reached the checkout, the teenage cashier, a pale girl with freckles, hesitated before scanning her bread. "Something wrong, sweetheart?" Evelyn asked kindly. The girl bit her lip. "My dad said, he said you had a gang at your house. The Hells Angels." Evelyn blinked. "Is that what they're saying now?" The girl whispered. "He said they're criminals. Dangerous. Said you could have gotten yourself killed." Evelyn chuckled softly, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. People love to talk about what they don't understand. By the time she got home, 3 police cruisers were parked across the street. Sheriff Dalton himself, tall, heavy-set, wearing mirrored sunglasses that reflected nothing but suspicion, stood waiting. "Morning, Mrs. Carter," he said smoothly. "Mind if we talk?" She crossed her arms. "You seem to already be doing that," he smirked. "Word is you gave shelter to 9 Hells Angels during the blizzard. That true?" "I gave shelter to 9 men stranded in a storm," she corrected. "Didn't check their jackets first." Dalton stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You know what kind of people they are? Drug runners, thieves, some with blood on their hands. You could have been an accessory without even knowing." Evelyn met his cold stare without flinching. "Or maybe I was just being human." His jaw tightened. "Keep your distance from them, ma'am. For your own good," she smiled sweetly. "Sheriff, I've been taking care of myself since before your mama was out of diapers." "I'll be just fine." Dalton turned away, muttering under his breath. His men followed, but not before one spat in the snow near her mailbox. Evelyn's eyes darkened. The next day, she found her fence vandalized, slurs scrawled in red paint, calling her a gang lover. Someone had smashed her mailbox, too. She scrubbed the fence herself, humming an old gospel hymn. But behind her calm hands, her heart ached. For the first time in 50 years, she felt like a stranger in her own hometown. Rumors and lies at Sunday service, she walked in wearing her best hat, navy blue with a silk ribbon. But the pews seemed colder than the winter outside. Whispers rippled through the congregation. "That's her, the one who helped those bikers. Reckless old woman, courting trouble." "I heard they paid her off." Probably hiding something. Even Pastor Willis, a man who once called her the heart of this church, wouldn't meet her eyes. After service, she approached him. "Pastor, you got a minute?" He looked uncomfortable. "Sister Evelyn, some of the congregation's been concerned. You understand, rumors fly." "Rumors don't scare me," she said softly. "But I thought this place was built on faith, not fear." He sighed. "You have to see how it looks. 9 outlaws in your home? They were freezing," she snapped. "You'd have let them die?" His silence was answer enough. Evelyn shook her head. "Maybe next time the Lord sends folks in need, he'll skip your doorstep." She turned and walked out, leaving a stunned hush behind her. The sheriff's trap. A week later, there was a knock on her door. When she opened it, she found Sheriff Dalton again, this time with 2 men in plain clothes. "Afternoon, Mrs. Carter," he said. "We've got some questions about your visitors." Evelyn's patience had worn thin. "I told you they came, they left." "That's all." Dalton gestured to one of his men, who pulled out a photo, a blurry picture of Cole taken at a gas station. "This man's wanted for questioning in connection with a brawl in Tennessee last year." "You sure you don't know where he is?" "I told you. I haven't seen them since that storm." Dalton smirked. "Funny thing. Folks say they've seen motorcycles on your road at night. Headlights coming and going." Evelyn's brows knit. "You accusing me of something, Sheriff?" "I'm saying," he said, leaning in close, "that helping known felons can make you one." She stared him down. "You think you scare me? You don't know a thing about fear. I buried a husband, raised a son alone, worked 3 jobs, and still showed up every Sunday. You're just a man with a badge who don't like an old black woman having more backbone than him." Dalton's nostrils flared. He nodded to his men. "Search the property." Evelyn's voice turned to steel. "You got a warrant?" He hesitated. "Didn't think so," she said. "Then you best take your dogs off my porch before I make a call to the state attorney's office." For a moment, no one moved. Then Dalton's smirk returned. "We'll be seeing you again, ma'am." He turned and left. Evelyn stood there until the sound of their engines faded. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but fury. She knew now. This wasn't about the bikers. It was about control, about putting her in her place, and she had no intention of going quietly. The return that night, she sat alone, the house dim except for the glow of the fire. Snow began to fall again, softer this time, gentle but heavy, as if the sky itself carried the weight of her loneliness. Then, faintly, came a familiar sound. Engines. She stepped onto the porch. Through the white curtain of snow, headlights approached. 9 of them. Her breath caught as the bikes rolled up her driveway, tires crunching the ice. Cole dismounted first, pulling off his helmet. His beard was frosted, his eyes serious. "Evening, ma'am," he said. "Heard you been getting some unwanted attention." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Word travels fast among angels, huh?" Cole smirked. "You fed us when nobody else would." "We take care of our own." "I don't need taking care of," she said, but her voice softened. "Still, it's good to see y'all." Rex stepped forward, holding a paper bag. "Brought you something. Groceries, some gas for the generator, and, some chocolate," Cricket insisted. From behind him, the young biker grinned sheepishly. "It's the good kind, too." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Thank you, boys." Cole's face turned serious again. "Ma'am, the sheriff's been asking around about you. Folks say he's planning to make an example out of someone." "Let him try," she said. "He'll regret it." Cole shook his head. "We won't let it get that far." The wind howled between them, and for a moment, Evelyn saw it, the unspoken bond. Different worlds, same fight. The poor, the judged, the misunderstood. She looked at the men who once terrified her neighbors and saw not criminals, but brothers in spirit. Cole adjusted his gloves. "We're sticking around a while, quiet-like, in case things get ugly." Evelyn sighed. "Y'all gonna get me in more trouble." He smiled faintly. "Or keep you out of it." For the first time in days, Evelyn laughed. "Fine, but you boys are eating supper first." As she turned toward the house, a shadow moved at the edge of the woods, unseen by her but caught in Cole's sharp gaze. A glint of metal, the flicker of a camera lens. Someone was watching. Cole's expression hardened. This wasn't over. The storm outside was calming, but the one coming for Evelyn May Carter had only just begun. The set-up snow melted into mud as winter began to loosen its grip on Maple Hollow. But for Evelyn May Carter, things hadn't warmed one bit. Everywhere she went, whispers followed. The grocery store clerk double-bagged her items without looking her in the eye. The mailman stopped leaving letters on her porch. Now they were shoved halfway into the busted mailbox she still hadn't replaced. The sheriff's cruisers slowed every time they passed her house. And on more than one occasion, she caught the glint of binoculars from the tree line behind her property. It was clear. The storm hadn't ended. It had just changed shape. Whispers in the diner one afternoon. Evelyn sat in Grady's diner, the only place in town that still made sweet tea strong enough to taste like home. She'd been coming here for 30 years, since her late husband, Moses, used to take her out on Sundays after church. Back then, everyone knew her name. Now they pretended not to. As she waited for her order, 2 men at the counter spoke in low voices. "Not low enough. You hear about Carter?" One muttered. "Sheriff says she's mixed up with them bikers. Probably hiding drugs for 'em." Evelyn turned slightly, pretending to stir her tea. "Wouldn't surprise me," the other said. "Heard she got a visit last night again. 9 bikes. Whole town could hear it. Damn shame. Used to respect that woman." The waitress, Brenda, an old friend of Evelyn's, shot them a glare. "Ain't your business what Miss Carter does? She's done more good in this town than both of you combined," the men sneered. "You defending her now, Brenda?" "Maybe you're next." Evelyn rose slowly, her shawl slipping from her shoulders. "Gentlemen," she said, voice calm but sharp enough to cut. "If gossip was gasoline, this town could power half the state." The men looked away, suddenly interested in their plates. Evelyn left a tip for Brenda and walked out into the chill air. Her chin high, but her heart heavy. The trap is set. That night. Cole and his men returned, not roaring down the road this time, but slipping through the dark quietly. Headlights off until they reached the back of her property. Evelyn met them on the porch with her flashlight. "Y'all look like you're sneaking out of jail." Cole gave a half smile. "Feels like it. We got word. Dalton's planning something. A raid." "On who?" He hesitated. "You," Evelyn's breath caught. "Me?" Rex stepped forward, his expression grim. "They're saying you're helping us hide stolen weapons. That you're part of a trafficking ring." Evelyn stared at them in disbelief, then laughed, a short, bitter sound. "They really think I'm smuggling guns in my biscuit tins?" Cole's jaw tightened. "They don't need proof. Just enough suspicion to make it look real." Evelyn walked back inside and set the flashlight on the table. "So that's their game. They can't scare me, so they'll ruin me." Cricket shifted nervously. "We can handle this, Miss Evelyn. We ain't gonna let them hurt you." She turned, eyes fierce. "You boys got your own battles. I won't have you catching bullets meant for me." Cole stepped forward. "We owe you more than a warm meal, ma'am. You showed us we ain't just animals. That counts for something. You're one of us now." Evelyn stared at him. This man who'd probably seen more violence than peace, whose soul looked like a scar that never healed. And she saw it. Truth. Real, raw truth. "Then I reckon," she said softly, "we fight this together. The sheriff's scheme. The next morning." Sheriff Dalton made his move. Evelyn was sweeping her porch when she heard the crunch of tires on gravel. 6 police vehicles pulled into her driveway, sirens off, but lights flashing blue against the trees. Dalton stepped out first, smug as a fox. "Mrs. Carter," he called, loud enough for the whole valley to hear. "We're executing a search warrant." Evelyn rested her broom against the rail. "You finally brought one, huh?" He smirked. "We have reason to believe you're harboring stolen property." Behind him, deputies fanned out. Some heading toward the barn, others toward her shed. Cameras clicked. A reporter from the local paper trailed behind, notebook ready. Cole had been right. This wasn't justice. It was theater. Inside, Dalton's men tore through her home. Drawers overturned. Cabinets emptied. Family photos tossed aside. One deputy, a young one, barely out of academy, hesitated when he found her late husband's medals. Evelyn watched him closely. "Careful with those," she said quietly. "My Moses earned them. The boy looked guilty. Yes, ma'am. He set them down gently before moving on. Outside, Dalton strutted toward the barn. What's in here, Mrs. Carter? Maybe some of your biker friends' toys? Evelyn folded her arms. Old tools. My husband's tractor. A few chickens if you're lucky. He threw open the doors. Inside, nothing but what she said. Rusted plow, hay bales, a cat asleep on an old tire. Dalton cursed under his breath. Keep looking, he barked. They searched for 3 hours. Found nothing. But that didn't stop Dalton. He walked back to his cruiser, pulled something from the trunk, a small black duffel bag, and handed it to his deputy. Put that behind the woodpile, he whispered. The deputy froze. Sir, do it. Evelyn was watching from the porch. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. She saw the deputy hesitate, saw the bag, saw the guilt. When Dalton returned, his smile was oily. Well, well, what's this? He gestured for the bag to be retrieved. Looks like your guests left something behind. He unzipped it. Inside, several handguns, each wrapped in plastic. The camera clicked again. The reporter's eyes widened. Dalton grinned. Guess we found our evidence. Evelyn didn't flinch. She walked down the steps, slow and steady. You really think I'm that blind, Sheriff? He tilted his head. You calling me a liar, ma'am? I'm calling you a coward, she said. A man who can't stand to see a black woman live free without bowing her head. The crowd, deputies, reporter, neighbors gathered by the road, fell silent. Dalton sneered. Watch your mouth. Evelyn stepped closer, her voice rising. You plant that bag, you plant your soul straight in hell. And you better believe, Sheriff, the Lord sees every dirty thing done in the dark. For the first time, Dalton's smirk faltered before he could respond. Engines roared in the distance, a sound that made everyone turn. 9 motorcycles came thundering down the road, cutting through the cold morning like an army from the underworld. The Hells Angels, Cole in front. They pulled up, dismounted, and stood silently, their presence alone enough to make the deputies reach for their guns. Cole looked straight at Dalton. Heard you were making accusations. Thought we'd come clear a few things up, Dalton scoffed. This is law enforcement business. Cole stepped forward, eyes glinting. So's framing an innocent woman? The deputies shifted nervously. The reporter's pen froze mid-sentence. Dalton barked, You threatening an officer? Cole's grin was pure defiance. Just reminding one what happens when truth gets buried. Sometimes it claws its way back. Evelyn moved beside him, her hand lightly touching his arm. Easy, son. They want a fight. Don't give 'em one. Cole nodded, breathing hard. The sheriff, sensing eyes on him, turned to the reporter. You see? These are the people she's protecting. Criminals. Thugs. The reporter's voice trembled. Sheriff, are you sure this evidence is real? Dalton's glare could have frozen lava. Watch yourself, boy. But the young deputy who'd hesitated earlier stepped forward, pale-faced. Sir, I saw you put that bag there. Dalton's head whipped around. What did you say? I saw you take it out of your car. You told me to hide it. Murmurs rippled through the small crowd. Evelyn's eyes glistened, but her voice stayed calm. Truth always shows up. Might be late, but it never misses its appointment. Dalton's face turned red. You lying little... Cole took a step forward. I'd think twice before finishing that sentence. The sheriff froze. For the first time, fear flickered in his eyes. The deputies exchanged uneasy glances. The reporter scribbled furiously. The spell was breaking. Dalton looked around, realized he was surrounded not by criminals, but by witnesses. His power, once absolute, was crumbling. He spat on the ground. This ain't over. Evelyn met his gaze. No, Sheriff. It's just getting started. He stormed off, his men following in silence. The reporter approached Evelyn. Ma'am, what just happened here? She smiled softly. Justice took her first breath. The quiet before the next storm. That night, the Hells Angels stayed close. They fixed her mailbox, repaired her fence again, even rewired her porch light that had been cut sometime during the week. Evelyn brewed coffee for all of them, humming an old tune her grandmother used to sing. Cole sat at the table, silent, staring into his mug. You all right? She asked. He nodded slowly. Been in a lot of fights, ma'am. But this one's different. Feels cleaner? Feels like it matters, she smiled. That's because it does. Cricket leaned in from the couch. You think they'll try something else? Evelyn's expression darkened. Men like Dalton don't quit. They just hide and wait for the next chance. Cole looked out the window into the dark woods, where the snow shimmered faintly under moonlight. Then we'll wait too, Evelyn nodded. Good, 'cause I got a feeling the devil's not done knocking. And somewhere, far down the mountain road, in the glare of a lonely streetlight, a black pickup idled, its driver holding a camera, snapping photos of every face inside Evelyn May Carter's house. The setup had failed, but the war had just begun. The reckoning spring came slow to Maple Hollow. The snow melted into the soil, revealing fields still scarred by frost. The creek thawed, carrying away winter's silence, but not its ghosts. For Evelyn May Carter, peace was still a stranger at her doorstep. Though the sheriff's lies had been exposed and the planted evidence disproved, the town's gossip didn't stop. If anything, it grew darker, fed by fear, resentment, and envy. Don't sell to her, some whispered. She's with them bikers. She's got devils guarding her porch, said others. And when someone vandalized the church wall with the words Angel's Witch, the pastor just repainted it, said nothing. Evelyn kept walking tall through it all, chin up, eyes forward. But each time she went into town, she could feel the shift. People she'd once shared casseroles and prayers with now crossing the street to avoid her. The only ones who treated her the same were the 9 men on motorcycles, the Angel's Promise Coal. And the crew came by every few days, not to intimidate or draw attention, but to watch, to repair, to protect. They took turns guarding her property at night, sitting around a fire by the edge of the woods, keeping the headlights off. They never said why. They didn't need to. Evelyn made sure they ate. Biscuits, chili, cornbread, enough coffee to fuel an army. She fussed over them like a mother hen, even when they teased her about it. You boys ain't got the sense God gave a goat, she scolded one evening as they sharpened knives on her porch. Cole smirked. You feed us too well to argue, ma'am. But under the humor, there was tension. Something unspoken hanging heavy in the night air. Cole was quieter than usual. Evelyn noticed. What's eatin' you? He hesitated, then said, Dalton ain't done. Men like that don't back off after getting embarrassed. We've seen it before. Small towns with small minds. They wait till they think you're alone. Evelyn nodded slowly. Then it's a good thing I'm not. Rex chuckled. She's tougher than half our chapter boss. Evelyn smiled, but her eyes flickered to the dark road beyond the fence. Tough don't stop a bullet, son. Cole didn't respond. He didn't need to. He'd already decided something, and she could see it written in the tightness of his jaw. The spark a week later, Evelyn's generator failed. The nights were still cold, so she called the local repair shop. The man on the other end, a young mechanic named Travis, promised to stop by before sunset. But sunset came and went. No Travis. She waited another hour, then went outside to bring in the firewood. That's when she saw it. Tire tracks. Fresh ones, deep in the mud, leading off toward the woods behind her barn. Her gut twisted. Cole? She called softly. No answer. The Angels weren't scheduled to stop by that night. They were running supplies for a food drive downstate. She tightened her shawl and followed the tracks. The air was damp, heavy with the smell of pine and rain-soaked earth. Then she heard it, a faint groan. She turned the corner and froze. Travis, the young mechanic, lay slumped beside his truck, his face bruised, his hands bound with duct tape. His lip was bleeding. Lord have mercy, she whispered, rushing to him. What happened, baby? He tried to speak. They said they were cops, but they... Before he could finish, a voice came from the shadows. Step away from him, Mrs. Carter. Evelyn turned. Sheriff Dalton stood 10 yards away, flashlight aimed at her face. His coat was unbuttoned, his expression colder than the mountain wind. Behind him, 3 men, not deputies. Mercenaries, rough-looking, guns at their sides. "Evening, ma'am," Dalton said. "Heard you been harboring some dangerous friends again." Evelyn's eyes narrowed. "You never learn, do you?" Dalton smiled thinly. "Oh, I've learned plenty. Like how a good story's more powerful than the truth. Folks around here already think you're mixed up in things. All it takes is one spark." He gestured, and one of his men stepped forward, a gasoline can in hand. Evelyn's heart stopped. "You wouldn't." "Oh, I would," Dalton said, voice low and venomous. "You embarrassed me, made me look weak. The department, the papers, the state investigator, all breathing down my neck because of you. But fires have a funny way of erasing evidence, don't they? You and that pretty house of yours, just another tragic accident." He motioned to his men. "Light it." But before the man could strike the match, headlights appeared on the hill. 9 of them. Engines roared. Tires screamed. Dalton's face twisted. "No!" The Hell's Angels thundered down the dirt road like avenging spirits, mud flying from their wheels. Cole was in front, his bike slicing through the dark like a blade. Dalton's men panicked, scattering. One raised his gun, but Cole's bike hit him square in the chest, sending him sprawling. Rex leapt off his ride, tackling another to the ground. Evelyn grabbed Travis and dragged him behind the truck. "Stay down!" Dalton fired once, a deafening crack, the bullet slicing through the night and shattering the side mirror of Cole's Harley. Cole dove behind the tractor, shouting, "Get her inside!" Rex and Cricket rushed to Evelyn, shielding her as they ran toward the house. The engines cut, and suddenly the night was filled with the sounds of shouting, footsteps, and chaos. Dalton tried to retreat to his cruiser, but Cole caught him halfway, slamming him against the hood. The sheriff's gun clattered to the ground. "You set her up again," Cole growled. "You tried to burn her alive." Dalton spat blood. "She's poison. You think she cares about you? You're just tools." Cole punched him, hard enough to make the man's words die in his throat. Inside the house, Evelyn grabbed her old landline. Her fingers trembled as she dialed. "State Police," she said when the operator answered. "This is Evelyn May Carter out on Route 29. Sheriff Dalton's out here with armed men. Shots fired." "You best come quick." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, faint, but growing. Dalton heard them too. Panic flared in his eyes. "You don't know what you're doing," he hissed. "They'll believe me. They always do." Evelyn stepped onto the porch, voice steady despite the chaos. Not this time. He turned, just as the floodlights of 3 incoming state patrol cars lit up the field. The fall of the Sheriff Dalton and his men were handcuffed before dawn. The evidence was overwhelming: the gasoline can, the wounded, mechanic, the deputy's prior testimony, and Cole's body camera footage. He'd been recording the whole confrontation on his helmet cam. Evelyn stood in her yard, wrapped in a blanket, watching as the sheriff was shoved into the back of a cruiser. Their eyes met one last time. "Still think I'm just a fool, old woman?" she asked quietly. Dalton sneered. "This ain't over." She smiled faintly. "You're right. It's Judgment Day, Sheriff." He was driven away as the first light of dawn broke over the mountains. Ashes and grace by the next afternoon, word had spread. The whole town knew. At first, people avoided her, too ashamed to face what they'd said, too guilty to apologize. But slowly, one by one, they began to show up. Brenda from the diner came with a basket of muffins. "I should have stood up for you sooner, Miss Evelyn." Evelyn hugged her. "You're here now, baby. That's what matters." Even Pastor Willis came by, hat in hand. "The Lord tests us in strange ways, Sister Carter. I failed mine." Evelyn smiled gently. "Then learn from it, Pastor. Don't fail the next one." Still, despite the newfound respect, she didn't feel victorious. Not yet. Too much had been taken. Her faith in her neighbors, her peace, her safety. That evening, the angels gathered in her yard, the sunset painting their leather jackets gold. Cole stood apart, leaning against his bike. "You all right, ma'am?" he asked. Evelyn looked at the horizon. "I reckon I am. Just wish the cost weren't so high." Cole nodded slowly. "Sometimes justice don't come cheap." She turned to him. "What'll y'all do now?" He shrugged. "Move on mostly. We're not exactly welcome anywhere long. But we wanted to see you through this." Evelyn's lips curved into a small smile. "You did more than that, son. You reminded this town what standing up looks like." He looked down, almost shy. "You reminded us what being good feels like." The others revved their bikes softly, not loud, just enough to echo like a heartbeat in the mountain air. Cole put on his helmet, then paused. "Ma'am," he said, "we meant what we said that night. You ever need us, doesn't matter when, doesn't matter where, we'll come." Evelyn chuckled. "Careful, Cole. I might hold you to that." He grinned. "We're counting on it." They rode off into the fading light, engines fading like thunder rolling away to peace. The shadow that stayed behind. For weeks, Maple Hollow began to heal. Dalton's trial made headlines across the state, a story of corruption, racism, and a small-town hero who refused to bow. Donations poured in for Evelyn's repairs. Her home, once targeted, became a symbol of courage. But one night, months later, as the crickets sang and the wind rustled through the pines, Evelyn sat alone on her porch with her tea. The moonlight shimmered across the gravel road. Then, faintly, she heard it. A single motorcycle in the distance. Not 9 this time, just one. It stopped at the edge of her property. A familiar figure dismounted, Cole. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her, his face half hidden by shadow. "Didn't expect to see you again so soon," she said softly. He nodded. "I wasn't gonna, but there's something you need to know." Her smile faded. "What is it?" He glanced toward the woods. "Dalton's gone." She froze. "Gone?" "Escaped custody 2 nights ago. Took down a guard, stole a car. They're searching statewide." Evelyn's breath caught. "You think he's coming here?" Cole's hand went to the handle of his pistol. "I think he's already on his way." Evelyn set her teacup down, her voice low and steady. "Then we best be ready, son." Cole looked at her, this old woman with fire in her eyes, standing against a storm yet again. And he smiled grimly. "Always are, ma'am. Always are." The night wind carried the sound of distant thunder, or maybe this time it was engines coming down the mountain road. The last stand. The night was unnaturally still. No wind, no owls, just the hum of the electric lines running along the edge of Route 29. Evelyn May Carter stood on her porch in her housecoat and boots, a shotgun leaning against the rail beside her, her eyes scanning the tree line. The air carried that strange tension that comes before a storm, except this one wasn't weather. Cole was beside her, quiet as ever, hand resting on his holster. The faint glow of his cigarette painted a small orange halo in the dark. "He'll come here," he said finally. "You know that, right?" Evelyn nodded. "He's got nowhere else to go. Evil always circles back to where it started." Cole exhaled smoke, watching it disappear. "You don't have to stay here tonight. We can take you somewhere safe." "This is my home," she said simply. "He ran me through fear, lies, fire, but he never took this. I won't hand it over now." Cole studied her for a long moment. Then, with quiet respect, he said, "Then we stay." Down by the gravel road, 8 other engines waited in the dark, silent, headlights off. The angels were there, every one of them, guarding the perimeter like sentinels. They didn't talk much anymore. They didn't need to. The return of the devil, it was past midnight when the first sign came. A flicker of headlights on the far ridge. Then another. Cole's voice crackled through his radio. "We've got movement." Evelyn's hands tightened on the railing. Moments later, a car emerged. Black sedan, bumper dented, one headlight broken. Sheriff Dalton's stolen vehicle. He drove without hesitation, turning into the long dirt road leading straight toward the house. Cole motioned to his men. Positions. The angels melted into the trees, shadows among shadows. Dalton's car rolled to a stop 30 feet from the porch. For a long time, nothing happened. Then the door opened. He stepped out, his face gaunt, his beard grown wild. Prison had stripped him of uniform and authority, but not hate. It burned in his eyes, the same way it had that night in the woods. "Evening, ma'am," he called, voice raw, ragged. "Miss me?" Evelyn's voice was steady. "You should have stayed gone, Sheriff." He laughed, a low, broken sound. "You ruined me." "Took everything. You think these men of yours can save you now? They ain't saviors. They're trash. Just like you." Cole stepped forward from the shadows. "Careful what you say next." Dalton turned, sneering. "Oh, the leader himself. You think playing watchdog for an old woman makes you a hero?" Cole's jaw flexed. "No, it makes me a man who's tired of watching people like you break good ones." Dalton pulled something from his jacket, a revolver. "Then die like one." The gun fired. The sound cracked across the valley, echoing off the hills. Evelyn flinched, but Cole didn't fall. The bullet struck the porch post beside her, splintering wood. Before Dalton could fire again, 2 engines roared to life, the angels flanking him from both sides. Rex fired a warning shot into the dirt, sending sparks flying. Dalton spun, firing wildly. The angels ducked behind bikes, shouting. Evelyn took cover inside the doorway, heart pounding. "Cole!" she shouted. "End this before someone dies." But Dalton was already charging toward the porch, firing again. Cole rushed him. The 2 men collided hard, struggling in the mud. The revolver went off again. Once, twice, lighting the night with flashes. Then silence. Evelyn's breath hitched. The darkness seemed to stretch forever. Finally, a figure rose from the ground. Cole. He was bleeding from the shoulder but still standing. Dalton lay sprawled in the mud, his gun out of reach. Cole kicked it away, panting hard. "You're done, Sheriff," Dalton coughed, spitting blood. "You think this changes anything? You'll always be scum, all of you." Evelyn stepped down from the porch, her bare feet sinking into the cold earth. She looked down at him. This man who'd terrorized her, humiliated her, tried to burn her alive. "You know what you are, Sheriff?" she said softly. "You're small, and I don't mean your soul. I mean your heart. It's so small, there's no room in it for anything but hate." Dalton sneered weakly. "Go ahead, finish it. You think you're righteous?" She shook her head. "No, I'm free, and that's worse for you." Cole picked up Dalton's gun and tossed it into the mud. "State troopers are on their way." "We called it in." Dalton's eyes widened. "You," Evelyn interrupted. "Don't waste your breath." "You had your last word the moment you pulled that trigger." The sirens grew louder, painting the trees with flashes of blue. When they arrived, they found Dalton handcuffed and trembling, his weapon destroyed. Cole stood guard, blood staining his sleeve, while Evelyn sat quietly on the porch, sipping tea as if the world had simply righted itself. The price of peace, Dalton was taken into custody, this time for good. Attempted murder, arson, conspiracy, abuse of power, the charges stacked higher than the mountains themselves. At the trial, Evelyn testified calmly, every word measured like scripture. When the verdict came, guilty on all counts, the courtroom erupted in applause. But Evelyn just bowed her head and whispered, "Thank you, Lord." Cole sat in the back, arms still bandaged, helmet resting on his knee. He caught her eye as she turned to leave. She nodded once, a silent exchange that said everything words could not. The town's awakening, months later, summer painted Maple Hollow gold. The town changed, quietly but truly. People started visiting again. Kids rode their bikes past her house, waving. The church invited her to speak one Sunday about forgiveness and courage. Evelyn agreed, but on one condition. "I don't preach from pulpits," she said. "I speak from porches." So the congregation gathered outside her home instead. sitting in lawn chairs and truck beds as she spoke under the same sky that once bore witness to hate. Sometimes, she said, God don't send angels with wings. Sometimes he sends them on Harley-Davidsons with leather jackets and bad manners. Don't judge what you don't understand. You might be turning away the very help heaven sent. Laughter rippled through the crowd, but there were tears too. From that day, the road leading to her house stopped being called Old Route 29. Folks started calling it Angel Road. One last ride late, one August evening, Evelyn was watering her garden when she heard it, faint but unmistakable. Engines, 9 of them. She looked up, smiling as the bikes rolled up the drive, kicking up dust in the sunset. The angels dismounted, dusted off their jackets, and stood in a line like sons returning home. Cole removed his helmet, grin wide. "Evening, ma'am. You didn't think we'd forget you, did you?" She laughed, heart swelling. "I was starting to wonder if heaven called y'all back early." Cricket handed her a small box wrapped in cloth. "We made something for you." Inside was a plaque, metal, hand engraved, with the words, "For Evelyn May Carter, the heart that never backed down. Forever under the protection of the 9. She ran her fingers over the engraving, tears shimmering in her eyes. "Lord have mercy, you boys gonna make me cry." Cole smiled softly. "Just making good on our promise." Evelyn hugged him, the old woman and the outlaw, 2 souls from different worlds bound by one thing stronger than blood, loyalty born from love and fire. When the sun dipped below the hills, the angels revved their bikes again, engines rumbling like a hymn. Evelyn stood on her porch, hand over her heart, watching them ride off down Angel Road, tail lights glowing like candles in the twilight. She whispered to herself, "Go on, my boys. Ride free." Then she went inside, the plaque shining on her wall, the night wrapping her home in peace. The promise that never died years later. When Evelyn May Carter passed peacefully in her sleep at the age of 83, the whole town came to the funeral. The mayor, the pastor, the children she'd once taught in Sunday school, all gathered to honor the woman who changed them all. But before the ceremony began, the low rumble of engines echoed down the hill. 9 motorcycles pulled into the cemetery, chrome glinting in the morning light. The crowd parted silently as the Hell's Angels approached her grave. Cole, now grayer but just as steady, placed a single red rose atop her casket and whispered, "Rest easy, ma'am. We got the watch now." Then he stepped back, lifted 2 fingers to the sky, and one by one, the engines started, roaring not in violence, but reverence. As they rode away, the sound faded into the wind, not an ending, but a vow echoing through the mountains forever. Because sometimes family isn't born, it's found on a cold night, in a storm, when one act of kindness turns strangers into guardians and enemies into brothers. And for as long as they rode, no one ever touched the house on Angel Road again.